On this vote, the yeas are 227, the nays are 205. The bill is passed. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
Okay, I'm joined now by Congressman, Georgia 9th District Congressman Doug Collins. Congressman, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well, Brian. Hope you are.
I'm doing great. We just played that 8-second clip that we're very proud of in our district to see our congressman up there gaveling in the passage of the tax reform bill the other day. So congratulations for getting that opportunity to stand there and do that and gavel that win in.
Well, thanks. It was a good feeling. Also, it was a good time being up there because I also had a chance to remind the minority leader, Miss Pelosi from California, that she can't talk when I don't want her to. So it was a good day all the way around.
I almost played that part too, but we thought we would just go with the yays are 227 and the nays 205. Let me ask you that right.
That was a good vote too, by the way.
Well, let me ask you that right from the beginning. The tax bill has absolutely no Democrat votes on it. 192, totally partisan line vote on the tax reform bill, and the Republicans lost 13 votes on that. So 227 to 205. What's your thought of why no Democrats came on board with this bill, and why you had 13 Republicans defect?
Well, on this vote in particular, this one, I without, using the normal, which I do believe that I think it's just hard for Democrats to believe that people spend their money better than government spend their money. There's an ideological difference. Here is it. This was a political vote, and I think it was a very good vote for us. It showed that Republicans in the House, which we have done before, have come together to get the 218 votes or over 218 to pass major pieces of legislation such as health care, such as now tax reform. Now, what we have heard, Brian, is on the other flip side. If we come back after the conference committee, when the Senate passes theirs, and we come back and we get 218 again, there will be Democrats who will probably join in. But they just were on this time, for purely political reasons, just simply say, fine, you're going to do this on your own. If you get it later, we may join you. But right now, again, and it goes back to just this very simple reason. They believe that the tax policy should benefit the government, not the people. And that's just a fundamental difference that we have going into next year, which, election cycles and everything else.
Well, the House's version of the tax reform bill, let's stay focused on your district here. And the 9th District mirrors a lot of them in the United States, but let's stay focused on the 9th District. Speak to specifically, what does this do for your district, small business? What do you feel it'll accomplish for small business? Tax reform for your district, and some of the things that's being misrepresented in the bill that you'd like to clear up.
Well, I think here let's deal with some of one of the biggest issues, top line, and this is what the president talks about all the time. It's what we've talked about all the time. Is the fact that we have a country that is incredible with we're energy independent. We have the best energy, lowest energy costs. We have the best workers. We've always had the best innovations and ideas. We had the worst tax system. This is a chance now to put all of those together, and the growth that will come that we know is proven. It's not theoretical. It's not could it happen. It will happen. That we'll see in growth is good for everybody. But let's get very specific. 9th District. There are over 50,000 people in the 9th District of Georgia who take the child care tax credit, which is going in our bill from $1,000 to $1,600. The Senate's actually thinking about doing a little bit more. We're taking about 83,000 of our North Georgia friends and relatives who actually itemize on their tax returns, which means that they have to go typically someplace, they itemize out, they have to spend that extra money to do that, keep the receipts, all that. We've raised the standard deduction from $12,000 to $24,000, from $6,000 to $12,000 for singles. And what we're projecting, looking at the numbers based on previous returns and IRS records, that 80,000 number will drop to below, really, in the 10%. That number represents about 30% of the filers. 30 to 40%, that number will go down to 6 or 7%. So what we're doing is simplifying a tax code system, giving people a tax break, giving people money back in their pocket, and doing so in a way that will stimulate economy for small business, taking the pass-through rate for those who have LLCs, partnerships, from the 40% rate roughly to the 25% rate, protecting so that very wealthy can't use pass-throughs to shield money. We're doing things like that to make sure that our tax rate is the best in the world. And when you do that, you see growth, you see economy. And one thing that was out there the other day, they kept saying this is a tax breaks just for the wealthy. Well, 75% of the tax breaks in this bill benefit those with under $200,000 in income. So, Democrats can pander all they want, but I'm pretty sick of it at this point.
Come back to the pass-through rate, because we hear that all the time, and I think I don't know. Let's see if I understand it correctly. When you say the pass-through rate, a lot of small business files in like an S corp, almost like personal tax return.
Yeah, that's a pass-through.
Right. Okay. And what will that rate go to from and to? What did you say it would go to?
It's roughly around the top right now, around 40. It goes to 25%, which is a 15%. Now, and some people have said, well, why would you treat C corporations, which are the typically bigger board of director kind of conversations, at 20% and pass through 25? Well, there's a big difference, because there's deductions and tax status on a pass through. There's a reason. If you and I were to start a business, Brian, whatever it may be, you and I would 99%, depending on the size of what we're looking to do, would start in a pass-through environment, because there's more flexibility. You don't have to deal with the regulatory filings. There's just a lot of things that go into that help businesses grow. So what we're doing is dropping that down to 25%, and then we're going to, for farm incomes and others, to make sure that you can get most of the income at the lower 25% rate, no matter what you may get personally through income. So it's a good thing. And the best part about this is, though, from doing the business corporate tax rate and the way that we're looking at deductions, same year deductibility for capital expenditures. So like in your business or any other business, they want to go out and buy a new soundboard, they want to go out and buy something for their business, they can capital dispense that in the first year. Instead of depreciate it out over time, they can do it in the first year. Can you imagine how much more that's going to stimulate economy and capital purchases? This is what I'm really excited about, and I'm proud to work with the president on this, and proud to work with the House and the Senate to get a bill that actually works for America. On the
big corporations that they talk about the tax break, is that also a reference to where we could repatriate, what we call repatriate money, and the big corporations are the ones that have the somewhat, I've heard, upwards maybe even $1 trillion that could be brought home? Is that in that window anywhere, Congressman?
Yes, it is. It's not the 20%. The repatriation is referring to the money you just talked about very well, that has been put off seas, because the way our tax system would do, it would tax it upwards of 75% of the income coming back into the U.S. On any board of directors that voted to do that, there would be a very good stockholder claim for malpractice. So what we're doing is saying, bring it back in. And they're going. I have to check the rate, because we went a couple of rates on this, and I apologize this morning, my brain didn't track on it. But say like 5 or 6% is our on that rate, bringing that money back in, and that money can then be brought in for investment. It can be brought in for for new jobs. It can be brought in for construction. It brings it back into the economy, where right now it's overseas and not being brought back in. We've also done something that the president had talked about, and we talked about in the House, and that is put in protections so that the loopholes are closed to take money offshore, to send businesses offshore. Because if you do that, there's going to be an excise tax that keeps you from making it profitable to take your business offshore. We're going to bring business back to America through this bill, and we're excited about that.
All right, let's go to actually seeing this thing get to the president's desk. The House has it out there. You have it passed. The Senate is working on their version. The Senate's version has come out of the Finance Committee, which we know that, and they're going to do it under reconciliation. The corporate tax would be permanent. The pass-through tax, the other taxes would be 2025, I think, would expire under the Byrd rule. Nobody ever really discusses that. But the point is, let's go to that other side, the Senate. Now, there's that deja vu. I think you and I had a conversation about the same time that Obamacare came out of the House and went over to the Senate.
Yep.
Do you think the Senate will pass this? I mean, what's the crystal ball on the House side with the Senate?
Yes, I do. And now, will they pass it? Is lovingly say we put I would love to say we put the perfect bill out there and they could just pass it. Well, they've got some changes. Actually, some of the changes that they put in theirs, we like. I mean, if, and it's a big if they can get rid of the individual mandate, then we can pass that in the House. But we wanted them to make sure they could pass it before we could. We didn't want to get hung up with that. There's a couple other things that we're going to work together on. I do believe they can, because one of the things you're not hearing, the only senator who's came out and said, I don't like this bill, is Johnson out of Wisconsin. And he's already said, well, let's work on it and maybe I can get there. Okay. No Republican has just come outright and said no. There's no Rand Paul looking for a bill. There's no Mike Lee and Ted Cruz saying I'll do this on health care. It's no Susan Collins and Murkowski, Republicans acting like Democrats wanting to get more money for their state. There's none of that right now. And what we're seeing is the understanding that if you can't come together on fundamental tax reform as a Republican, then maybe you got the wrong letter by your name.
Okay, I'm told we got a minute, so you got 2 questions. Do you think we'll see this by Christmas? Is it possible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, second, the Democrats have found the deficit. All of a sudden, they found the deficit, and they say this will blow the – well, I'm sorry, Congressman, but they found it. It seems to be lingering out there somewhere, the deficit. This will blow the hole in the deficit. Could you tell me how this could be revenue neutral, or does it blow a hole in the deficit?
No, it does add to the deficit over a 10-year window. The thing that it doesn't take into account is any growth or any scoring. It's all based on current conditions.
Current conditions.
At this point in time, this is what we're looking for this to actually cause growth and cause increase. We've seen it every time from John Kennedy through Ronald Reagan to now. It happens every time. We should see that on this one as well.
Well, then when we get the current conditions to go up and we get 4-point GDP, let's not spend it, Congressman. I'm sorry.
I agree with you on that one. I agree with you on that one.
You have a great day. Thank you for coming on and helping clarify this for us this morning.
Always good to talk to you, Brian. Have a blessed Thanksgiving to all your listeners. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, there's Congressman Doug Collins, 9th Congressional District. I just have to say, when we get the 4%, that's Congressman Doug Collins from Georgia, 9th Congressional District. He is the one that gavelled in. We're proud of the congressman. We're here in Georgia, and he gavelled in the vote count, and I like the way he said, Congressman Collins said he had to remind former Speaker, Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, she couldn't talk, which was pretty good if you had a chance to watch that video.